Hey there, welcome back to She Speaks Life. Did you know you can watch this episode and others live on YouTube? Go to Jayme Elizabeth, She Speaks Life, and hit the subscribe button to be alerted with the newest releases. Okay, today I have with me Michal Carlock. She is the CEO of Her Promise Circle that helps women find the thing that they were created for and become the healthiest version of themselves to pursue it. Michal talks about being faithful with the little and how God grows it bigger, and how she's seen God's hand in her circumstances, along with the steps to finding meaning and purpose in life through faith. She is so inspiring as we talk about going from living a life of being a lukewarm Christian and doing what we want to living fired up and doing the desires of God's will. I can't wait for you to hear this. Here's my guest, Michal Carlock. Hey, Michal, welcome to She Speaks Life. I am so glad you are here with us today to share about your community. You are CEO of Her Promise Circle, and I can't wait to dive in more about it.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here and to share more with you. I love what you do. And so I'm like in admiration here, wanting to learn more about you as well. But I guess we can talk about me.
Yes. Well, we won't turn the tables just yet here. Oh, I love it. Okay, so before we dive into your message and your story, I always love to start off with, what is your favorite scripture verse and why?
I actually have it opened in front of me so I could read it to you.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So my favorite scripture right now, currently, in each season it kind of changes. But this is one that's been for several months now. It's 2 Corinthians 9:8. And God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that you always have all sufficiency in all things, may have an abundance for every good work that you do. So especially speaks to me for Her Promise Circle, because obviously our mission and business is to better and help improve and help put in place things for women to focus on their wellness overall, not just physically, mentally. Normally some places are physically and mental, but we cover spiritually as well. And so we need all of that. And to do all that, you need resources and, you need things. I mean, that's how it works. And so this verse is always like, well, it's a good work. And so God will supply our needs, and He has thus far. So
yeah, such a good God. And I love what you're doing. You're helping women find the thing that they were created for and become the healthiest version of themselves to pursue it. And it takes me back years ago. I used to teach workout classes. And and women would come up to me and they're like, oh, Jayme, what do you think about eating this? Or what do you think about doing this workout and incorporating this into my diet? And, why can't I have this waist? And why aren't my thighs like this? And the best thing, because somebody told me this one day, is to be the best version of yourself, because we were not created all like equal. We're all created unique in God's image. So, our bodies are different shapes and we have different dispositions. And not every nutrition is going to make us maintain or lose weight or gain weight even. So it's just so tailor-made. And that's when you basically, I mean, not to get into all the nutrition working out, but you have to be the Sherlock Holmes of your own body. But I think the best advice is to say, whether it is emotional, spiritual, or physical, to be the best version of yourself. So I love that I read that in your description, in your tagline, that's how you help women. So I would love for you to start us out with, what made you start Promise Circle Community? Let's hear your story.
Oh, Lord, let's hear the story. Okay. All right, Jayme. Let's start from the beginning.
Yes.
So I'm a PK. I grew up like as a PK. So like my grandma was a pastor, and my mother was heading towards getting ordained. And so, it's always been in me. However, when my grandmother passed away from cancer when I was like 19, I was ill prepared because as a kid, it's like, well, if you ask God for things and you're not sinning, then he hears you and he will do, what you ask. And so I even didn't visit her much as I should have in the hospital because I'm like, well, she's gonna come home. Like, it's fine.
Right.
And she passed while I was away at college, my first year of college. And so from then on, my relationship with God has been rocky, to say the least.
Yes.
It was like my first big disappointment in life.
Sure.
And it was caused by the God that I was told is so good and so great and can do what we ask, beyond what we think and imagine. And like in such a big way, I was disappointed. That's the best way to put it. And I grew up without a father, so that was my two-parent household. So it was my grandma and my mom. And so now not only is my like foundation of faith broken, my relationship and structure at home was shaken. And so I never really learned how to have a relationship with him. Now, I still believed in him. Nothing was going to talk me out of that. But when it came to spending time with him and like worship and all that, count me out. I'm going to go out with my friends. I'm going to do anything that can numb this pain that I've had for however long. Because, I mean, you're 18, 19. Are you really self-reflecting?
Right.
No. I'm trying to numb this terrible emotion I'm feeling. And I don't really know where it's coming from. And so it projected into my relationships. Needless to say, I was looking for God in men. And I'm like, well, if I could just get married, I think I'll be fine, honestly. If someone could just love me, love this away, I think I'll be okay. And so it was a series of toxic relationships, abusive relationships, emotional, and sometimes physical, not like I was beat or anything, but like it was just toxic. And it was not until I was about 29, I got into a relationship and it was like, I was happy. And I was like, wow, this is it. Finally. Thanks, Lord, and like, it wasn't. And so when the person left, I was literally on my bathroom floor, like exhausted, and not physically exhausted at all, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually spent, trying to give what God wanted from me to other people. And I remember just like laying there and I'm like, I know you are what I've been looking for. Like, I know it's you. I know it is, but I don't know how to come back to you. I don't know where to start. Here I am, do your thing, because if you don't do something, I'm ready to go. This life thing, I'm good. I don't want to do it. I can't live it like this. So if you don't do something, please come on.
Throw me a lifeline, God.
Please do something. And from that point on, I felt his presence for the first time in a long time, like a rest of his presence. I was familiar with it. I grew up in church, but I felt it and was like, I don't want to leave here anymore. And so I call that recommitting my life to God in that moment. And so from then on, I went on like this fast binge, I fasted like every other week for like months and just like took out the secular music, because you don't realize how it programs you to see love. And no one's ever taught me love. So that's what love was to me, what I heard. I started listening to sermons. I had to go and buy a Bible, Jayme. I didn't even have a Bible. I didn't have an interest in buying a Bible, writing in it, journaling, none of that until that like time of my life. And so that's the backstory of what led me to actually listening to him and starting to trust him again. We're still getting there, But
Right. Right.
learning to trust him and know that there's
Mhm.
always a reason for everything and that he still has everything working out for my good.
Mhm.
And so I actually went to the Woman Evolve conference, which is by Sarah Jakes Roberts,
Oh,
T.D. Jakes'
gosh, love
daughter.
her.
I'm obsessed with
Oh,
SJR. Let's
oh,
not get
she's
started. We will talk about her
she's
the whole time.
fire.
She's
Yeah,
amazing.
she is
Um,
amazing.
that was my first but it was virtual. It was 2020.
Mhm.
So I'm also a respiratory therapist. I work in critical care, emergency medicine.
Oh, wow.
And so I was going to work, coming home, binging sermons, reading my word, going to work because at that time we're experiencing loss at such a profound
Oh,
number.
yeah.
My emotional banks were just
Yeah,
depleted. I
during
mean,
COVID, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Right in the midst of 2020 is when I'm giving my life back to God.
Right.
And I'm like stuck in the house. So it's like I'm going to work, I'm seeing all
Yeah.
this, and you're not just seeing the patients because I'm a respiratory therapist. We pull the plug, so that's like my job.
Oof.
But we
Yeah.
also are seeing the families and hearing the families, and having
Mhm.
to take tablets in and have them say goodbye that way because they weren't allowed in the hospital.
Yeah.
So if you have
Wow.
a heart for people, we
Right.
were all having breakdowns left and right,
I
truly.
bet. Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, God, I need replenished emotionally. I felt like the woman at the well,
Mhm.
where he's like, if you thirst, I can give you something you'll never thirst for. He's like, I need some of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give
Right.
me that well.
Yes.
Um, and the first thing he showed me was like community and people.
Mhm.
And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, I'll do like a Bible study maybe with like my friends. Okay, which of my friends even know God? I don't know. That was never a requirement before.
Right.
So I had to literally start over, And so I was like, all right, I'll do a Bible study. So it's me and like 3 or 4 girls that I know meeting every Thursday. And I'm just doing, a Bible study. Eventually it spiraled into like me writing up study guides because they were like, hey, what did you do last week? I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So I started writing up study guides and I would put them on my Instagram that I made for the Bible study group. It started as an Instagram page and a Bible study group where I was like, okay, it's just me and a couple girls and like an Instagram
Mhm.
page where they can like see the revelations that we get. Cool. I'm
Yeah.
good with this. This is great. I need community. I get it.
Mhm.
Over time, he was like, yeah, I need you to like share this on TikTok. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't think that's God. I don't I don't think that's God. Why would he tell me? He's like, yeah, it's me. So
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
And so I started sharing, but I also started like not losing people, but they got busier and busier. And so some days no one would come. And so
Mhm.
I would reschedule. And one day he was like, I need you to just record them so that they
Mm.
have them when they miss them. And I'm like, all right. So I'm speaking to a screen about
Yeah.
God, recording a Bible study for the girls that missed. And eventually I needed a space to put this stuff because it became content.
Sure.
Because now I'm racking up recordings. Now I'm racking
Yeah.
up study guides. And I'm like, all right, let me just
Yeah.
put this on my website.
Yeah. God's downloading on you. You're
Like
like,
literal download.
yeah,
And
that's
I'm like,
awesome.
okay, I need a place for this.
Yeah.
So I came up with the name. I bought the website and started putting that on there. And next thing you know, I'm posting it on TikTok. I have, 150 girls sign up on the email list. And so
That's
then like
great.
25 to 30 girls come every Thursday now. So it's
Mhm.
like, okay. So
Awesome.
then from then on, I kept getting downloads. We have an outreach team now. I have a health and wellness coaching master's certificate, and so I do health and wellness coaching as well to go along with my
Mhm.
love for health and wellness.
Mhm.
So we have all types of coaching because now I have branches and a team, and so we do
Mhm.
business coaching, business etiquette coaching, fitness accountability partners. We
Wow.
have a blog. I have the blog where I share some of my revelations. I have
Mhm.
a social media coordinator and marketing manager, so she helps women who want to build their own faith-based platforms.
Mm.
And then I also do faith-based life coaching, which is great to have whenever you're like, all right, I want a life coach, but one that understands the Holy Spirit, and I can talk
Right.
about my spiritual burnout too, right? And
Yes.
so I started offering that, and so it turned into this thing in over the span of like a year,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then now I'm just like, hey, I'm the founder and CEO of Her Promise Circle. Because it's
Yeah.
like, I didn't know that's where we were going with this. I just wanted to have women to share God with.
Right.
That's
And
all.
that's okay. That's the most beautiful part about all of this is you are displaying exactly that organic growth, because whenever we are faithful with what God puts in front of us, like, and it's the small things, usually, like you were just saying, you're starting out, people weren't showing up. So God's like, okay, and that's not on you, it was on them. And so God's like, okay, well, let's try to solve that issue by recording who he is and his love and kindness, or whatever topic that you are speaking on. And I just love how the Lord speaks to you and speaks to us, those that are listening. And it's the ones that are obedient. Like he sees, he goes and looks throughout the ones that he knows will yield to him. And so therefore he's doing this in you, and then he's the one that's growing this huge community that goes beyond your imagination.
Yeah.
And I just love it because you started out just being obedient with what he put in front of you.
Yes.
Okay, so in like your daily circumstances, how do you see God, working in your life when you're going through struggles? What if a listener is going through something? What would you encourage them on?
I'm very transparent. I only have what I go through currently to talk about. And
Yeah.
like I told you about my struggles in the past, some sort of traumas that I've been through relationally, that's where the enemy has attacked me the most, is relationally. And so it's like, I always held God separately to me. It's like, okay, I go to God in the morning, I spend my time with him. And then it's like, all right, if I want to go back to God, I got to like create this space where he's there and I can talk to him and he's listening. And it wasn't until I learned, like, actually understood, because we have knowledge, right? You get knowledge and wisdom, but like you apply it when you understand it.
Yeah.
And lately he's been showing me, like, your problems that you have relationally are bleeding into our relationship. And so I have this fear of vulnerability, fear of intimacy, a fear of abandonment, fear of disappointment. And obviously we know without faith, you cannot please God. And so if you don't trust him, you can't put your faith in him.
Right.
And it's beautiful how God is teaching me how to love him and receive his love, because obviously praying for a husband, keep me in your prayers, and praying for like a family. And I understand that has been generationally passed down as well. It's not just me. I've never really seen any healthy relationships. I have 9 aunts and uncles. They're all like divorced or have been through it. That's not speaking against them. It's just true. It's just I haven't grown up seeing that family unit that's based in Christ. I haven't seen it. And if you haven't seen something, how do you learn it?
Right.
How do you even know it exists?
Where's your example?
Where's my example?
Yeah.
I don't even know that this thing is real. And so I'm believing you for something that I've never even experienced or seen. And so I would tell people, remember Mary and Martha, whenever he came and Martha is like busy with all the things she had to do. And I think us as Christians, we get busy with, okay, I need to read my word. I need to read 5 chapters. I need to journal. I need to worship. So God's here. And then I need to be good to everybody. And I need to not say no because, I'm trying to please and love. And I'm trying to show that I'm a Christian. Even when you're hospitable, like you have to make sure it doesn't leak into people pleasing, because you could be the most giving person people know, but your heart cannot be right. Your heart could be intended on trying to have you show other people how great you are at serving. And so I had to do a real reality check. And it's like, it's true. And then it's just like when God humbles you to a place where you can admit it, then he can show you.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is, seeing him in my everyday life has come from basically me and him going to counseling, like therapy. Like, okay, what's
Mm-hmm.
the problem in our relationship? So I can be
Mm-hmm.
close to you all day instead of thinking I have to do all these things to be close to you.
Yes.
Mary just laid at his feet,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, she will never lose this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she's got this for life.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
leading me into from Martha to Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Yeah.
intentionally. And I think it's beautiful because, like I said, I'm praying for a marriage. It's like he's showing me how to love and be loved so that I don't get it before I'm ready for it and I can keep
Mm-hmm.
it, you know?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm actually writing I have an ebook on this on,
Mm.
I totally forgot to tell you that.
Yeah.
It's called Get Ready. And it's like the blessing in the wait. So,
Yes.
just the beauty of it, because you can get so tied up in like being impatient and trying to have it. And
Yeah.
I see that his love is also in withholding. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just in giving me things that I'm not ready for. It's withholding
Sure.
it until I'm ready so I can enjoy it.
Yeah. So good. Oh, I love that. And
Yeah.
I can totally relate to being a doer at heart. I'm
Oh
just
my
a
God.
doer.
Yes.
And so many times God's spoken to me, don't just be doing. I just want to be with you. Just be with you.
I
And
love
so
it.
it's that do word that like changes into a be and be word. And I'm like, yes, Lord. And so I get convicted. I'm like, okay, I'm being with you. I have to back myself up a little bit and
Yes.
go, okay, Jayme, like slow down, be still with the Lord.
Yes.
And, because we get this fulfillment when we're doing things for the Lord. But that's not what it's all about.
No.
And when we're unbalanced or we're tending to do that more than be with the Lord, then he so tenderly tells you, just rest in me, just
Yes.
wait in my presence. I just want to be with you, communicate with you. And it's just so neat
Mhm.
how he corrects,
Yes.
for our good and for the best in our life.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. And I can, relate to not having that personal relationship when I was younger and being a Christian, knew who God was, but never cultivated that personal relationship. And, everyone's got their, bathroom floor moment where they're
Yes.
just
I mean,
like, God,
it's
help
true.
me,
Yes.
and that was what happened to me. And I shouldn't say, everyone has like this horrible, story, but a lot of us have that bathroom floor moment. And so I love that every single time I speak to women and even in my own life, he's met me there.
Yeah.
His presence, like you said, it was just this instant presence of who he is, and you didn't want to get out of that presence. You just wanted to stay in it. And it was, I'm sure, so comforting and at peace and something you've never experienced before. And that's what he does. And so he comes and rescues us. He's our refuge. And I love that he did that in your life. And he does that in all of our lives, those who want him to be our rescuer. So good. Okay, so I wanted to move on to some of the steps that you encourage other women in finding their meaning and their purpose through faith, because there's this whole thing with purpose, calling, assignment,
Yes.
destiny. I mean, everyone's like, and everyone just gets a little bit confused. And so for me, I look at purpose as glorifying God and serving others. Like my purpose is to love God with all my heart, might, and strength, right? And glorify him. And doing that by serving others. And then my calling would be, how do I do what's the vehicle that I do that through podcasting. I do that through my parenting. I do that through, but everyone's got their own definition, and not to bash anybody who thinks of it any differently, but what do you teach in your circle?
Specifically in finding purpose, I harp on, first of all, being in relationship, because most people think about it when you come to God. It's just like any other relationship. because, you get excited, you get the honeymoon phase, you want to do, let's
Yeah.
join the group, that church group, and let's do that, and let's be in small group, and like you get excited, and in that excitement, what you may miss is the thing that you actually think is exciting in the time, just like how a relationship goes from honeymoon phase to, oh, this is the real. If it's not for you, it's not gonna give you the breakthrough that you're wanting or needing. And so if you forget that at the end of the day, God wants to be intimate with you, then he can't show you. Because if you're not listening, if you're focused on all the things that you're able to do, because just because you're able to do something doesn't mean it's for you. Right. And so developing that discernment comes from surrendering to his will. Because if you are in your own will and you want to do this, 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 and this, you will. There's no template. There's no restriction. There's no discernment. It's just, that's what I want to do. And that's pride. And until you fully just slow down and understand the importance of how close you are to God, you could be acting in your own will and not even know it, because you're doing good things. Yeah. And that's where a lot of us get tied up, because like, you're doing good things. Oh, everything for me that's of God is going to be good and lead me to him. And it is. And I'm doing. And it's like, right. Until God makes you slow down, whether that's you getting burnt out, or that's you getting to the point where you're like, God, where are you? I don't hear you. He gets quiet to bring you back to him. But if you stay with him, he won't have to do that as much. Yeah. And so in finding him, you find that thing. I think I think it's always in you, because he puts it in us, right? Before the beginning of time, before I formed you, I knew you, in Jeremiah. And so he implanted everything you would need. And so you kind of have an idea probably of the things that excite you already. For example, I tried to do this when I was like 25. I tried to like have something like this, and it didn't even like do anything her promise circle was doing. And that's because I was doing it without purpose. I really was, without a clear vision of what he wanted for me. And so it's always in you, the thing that you could do without being paid. The thing that excites you, the thing that you don't get tired of doing. There's a verse. I wish I could quote it off the top of my head. It's so good, but it basically is.
You can summarize it.
Okay, there is a rest for Christians to still enter, but it's basically saying that when we're working, we are resting. When we're working in him, we're actually resting in our spirit. And so you don't get burnt out when you're working in purpose. Yes. And so when you find that thing you're working in that you don't get tired of, and that you love fully, that's when you find purpose and faith, because it's going to be bigger than you. For example, I'm like, all right, Lord, a little Bible study. It's like, nah, it's going to reach lots of people. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I didn't plan on that, but all right.
Yeah, because he's the God of increase.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything he touches multiplies. And it's like, well, he gave me what I was ready for. Yeah. As you focused on him, he expands you in your faith, and therefore you can believe for bigger things. And so I say that to say, I think I keep saying relationship, but I'm just realizing how important it really is. And just focusing on him will lead you to purpose, because he's a God of purpose. He created us for a purpose. He created us for an intent. Like I just said, and he made Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. He knew him already, what he would be doing from the beginning to the end. Right. And so if you learn to have a relationship with God and be surrendered to his will, that's the second thing, then you will absolutely know and hear and get step by steps.
Yeah, I love that. It takes me back to the time where I was tired of being tired. I was tired of being a lukewarm Christian. I think being that lukewarm Christian is exhausting. And I knew it. I knew I was trying to fit God into my lifestyle instead of the other way around. And that's really just doing what you want to do and then just inviting God in when it's convenient. And we all know that is not living according to God's will. You know, we have the book, the Bible to glean on, to know what is his will for our lives. And when you're doing things your own way, then, you're looking at your own manual. You're not looking at God's instruction manual, which is the word. So I love it when, you just realize that you're not living the way you should, because we all know there's so many dead ends to that lifestyle, and you will get burnt out, and you'll hit that dead end sign, and you'll just go, okay, I'm tired of doing it my way. Let's try God's way. And I think there's half of us that do that, and then the other half that maybe God bless you if you grew up just automatically knowing God's way is the best way.
God, but God
Yes.
bless you.
Yes, but I know there's the other half that did not. And so we realized that, God has that best plan for us. And so I love all that you just shared. And so as we conclude here, I love for you to share a takeaway with the woman listening, for her to ponder on or take action in.
Okay, as I stated in the beginning, because this is what my podcast this week's going to be on.
Which I love, by the way. Everyone hit follow on iTunes for Her Promise Circle. Myself and my daughter, we are your biggest fans. It is so good. Yes, it's so full of wisdom, and you hear right away what the Lord downloaded you that episode, and it's so genuine, authentic, and anointed. It's so real. So you guys definitely, I encourage you to hop on there and listen to Michal's podcast. Okay, go ahead and share your podcast.
Make me cry. I can't. Okay. So as I said from my story, if you could take anything away from me, because I think God lets us go through things so we can help people have it easier.
That's right.
And I think that if we learn that God isn't separate from everything else in our lives, to get closer to him, you have to realize if you treat people a certain way, it maybe be bleeding into your relationship with him. Mm-hmm. And if you are afraid to get close to people, you're probably afraid to get close to God. And so you act like you love people, you love people you give, but you're always holding them at this arm's length place. Mm-hmm. And until you put that guard down from being hurt, betrayed, through toxicity, through abuse, until you learn to put that guard down to God, you won't experience him as fully as he'd like to experience you. And that's what I'm doing currently. Working on my intimacy with him, because even basking in his presence for one day, it says in the Bible that he blesses you behind closed doors. And so when you go to that secret place, and pray to him and spend time with him, he can touch your heart in a way that he hasn't been able to before, openly in public or whatever. But the public will see the change in you by what God does behind closed doors. And so I just promote worship, a heart of worship. Worship is not just singing and being in church, but worship is, how you live and how you revere him, and spending that prioritized time with him. And again, watch how you treat him. Watch how you treat other people, because it'll show you how you treat him. I don't know why we think because we have a relationship with other people, it won't bleed into a relationship that we have with God. It's like, it's relationship. If you don't know how to be in a relationship, you don't know how to be in a relationship. And so I just implore you not to separate who you are as a being, because whenever you get closer to God relationally, you'll get closer to people relationally, and you never know what's behind that door.
Yeah. So good, Michal. Okay, where can people connect with you and your community?
So you can always visit herpromisecircle.com. That's where everything is. Bible study links, the podcast, the blog, our outreach team, etc. We are in Atlanta, so if you're in the Atlanta area, you can join our outreach team here. But we also have opportunities in other places as we're growing. And then my podcast is Her Promise Circle podcast, which is on Spotify and Apple, Google, all the things. And then you can find my Instagram, which is michal.renee. And then the Her Promise Circle Instagram is just Her Promise Circle. We also have a Facebook group. So once you join, you can be on the Facebook group. That's her promise circle. Everything's her promise circle. Everything's my name. So if you just search it, you'll find me.
Yes, I know. I love that name, Her Promise Circle, and I love what you're doing for his kingdom, and just your obedience is just amazing, and you just shine his light, I mean, everywhere with what you're doing. So, and it shows, and I love it, and I thank you for coming on here.
Thank you for having me. I had such a good time.
Me too. It was an honor. Thank you so much for listening today, and I trust that God has encouraged you through this story. Did you know this podcast is on YouTube? Hop on there and subscribe, and you can see a live recording of each episode. And for more information on this ministry and to access free downloads, please visit my website at jaymeelizabeth.com. That's JAYME Elizabeth.com. And let's connect beyond this podcast by going to my Instagram handle, Jayme Elizabeth, She Speaks Life, or Facebook. Until next time, my friend, I hope God reveals himself through your own life story.